You're listening to PatchBay on TYM KRS.
Welcome to PatchBay, show where we talk about audio engineering, making records, the music scene last week. That was fun. All sorts of random and fun topics. Anything having to do with basically what we're into, and that's recording music. Hello, Shane.
Hey, dude, how's it going?
Oh, pretty well. Sort of hanging out here. It's like a Monday evening.
And it's actually 0 degrees currently in Winnipeg, which is a nice break from the minus 20 Celsius we've been having the last 2 weeks. So I'm quite enjoying it.
Yeah, it's second year in a row here. It's been pretty okay here. I moved out to Minnesota a few years ago, expecting it to be absolutely terrifying weather, but no, it's been pretty good.
I bought a bulldozer the first week and a snowblower. I don't even own a snowblower.
Yeah. A lot of people in other parts of the country don't really they don't have their heads wrapped around what the reality of day-to-day life is up here this time of year. And we're far enough north that I imagine it's fairly similar to what you're used to dealing with. I'm on a third shift schedule because Addie's a nurse and she works at night. So this time of year, I might as well live in northern Alaska because I only get to see the sun for a few moments a day. And that's it. We haven't got to use our driveway in weeks and weeks and weeks because it's absolutely just buried.
Yeah, it's always entertaining. And then having to scrape the damn windows and it's like 7 months of it here, or at least, about 7 months anyway. So, no fun, but whatever. You know what? I do wish that I had a garage. I will park my car downtown at a parking garage just for it to warm up a little bit because it gets so friggin' frozen that you just have these chunks of ice that are just on the car all the time. And the only way to really get them off is to leave them in a heated garage for, a few hours. So that's I'll actually park it somewhere just for that sake and pay parking, So it's wonderful living in the cold. Although you get used to it. Every year I hate when it first shows up, and then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I just basically hibernate. I'm good like that. We actually have a garage, and I could probably set it up with heating, but the problem isn't so much not having the garage. The problem is that we've got this really steep driveway, and this time of year, forget about getting a car up here. It's just, you would need to have chains on your tires just to get up our driveway. So
or a winch.
Yeah. Just leave the car down there till spring.
Yeah, it's always. I was gonna say, I always find it funny when like somebody like Texas gets snow and they have like 2 snow removal trucks, for all of the city.
Yeah.
Like somebody got nailed, I think this year or last year, and Winnipeg actually sent some trucks down because it was like really bad, like because nobody had a snow shovel. There was no snow shovel anywhere, So I always kind of have a good giggle at that, but. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, what was the topic that you were thinking about?
Oh, yeah. So this week I had a little bit of commission work, and occasionally these little jobs will pop up, and I thought I'd bring it up in conversation here on the show. So basically what it was this guy's producing YouTube videos, right? And they're sort of instructional videos showing how to use some PCB design software called Trace. And so he's a graphic designer, and he does board designs and electronics and all that sort of thing. But he's not really he's a musician, but he's sort of the type where he understands that if he were to do the job, he would not be able to decide this, that, or the other thing, and it would just get mired down by his inability to settle on, okay, this is good enough or this isn't good enough. So he comes to me and he's like, I need some intro music for my YouTube videos.
Okay.
And now this is a sort of thing where I have to do this for all of the shows, and he watches all of them, so he knows that I can do this sort of thing. So he thought he would just say asked me to do it, and I don't have the same problem of making the decision of, okay, that's good. There you go. There's a draft.
Yeah, that works. Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know. This sort of thing, I mean, it's a nice way to make a couple of bucks now and then, but I never really saw myself as a jingle writer, right?
Right.
And it seems like there's a line there that none of us who do this sort of work want to cross. It's like working on a record is like this artistic endeavor, whatever.
Yeah, I see where you're getting at.
Working on a jingle, like, come and use our bank or whatever, or Soapy's Car Wash or whatever it happens to be, is way over that line. And I was just wondering if you've been, I don't know if I want to say stuck doing that kind of work at all.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have. I mean, I guess the thing is, you hit the nail on the head when you said it's sort of like artistic versus like making money, right? Kind of thing. Yeah, I do that all the time. I mean, there's not that every session that I do is kind of, kind of thing, but there's sessions that are artistic, and there's sessions that that I can be free, and I can kind of, I'm not scared to say, let's try this or let's do that. And then there's sessions that are like, sadly, sort of doing it for the money. Like, I haven't done a lot of jingles, but I've done lots of voiceover stuff. I've done lots of karaoke recording, of people, which is, it's still fun and it's still a session. What I've lately been sort of coming up with as a possible way of making some money in my own area. Everybody's got on hold music, right?
Sure.
And a lot of people, they don't have any kind of custom music. They'll just usually tune it into a radio station or something like that, right? So what I was thinking of doing was, we've got such a huge catalog of music that I could just use. I could license it, or I can just sort of, I don't even need to create the music. I can just find music, especially very specific to the, like, say, Ukrainian and Aboriginal Native American communities. So let's say the Ukrainian dentist in Winnipeg. I've got tunes that I could use, right?
Right. And
right. And so what I'm thinking of doing as a side thing to make a little bit of extra cash, call these guys, say, hey, listen, you got kind of not the greatest hold music. I'll put together a CD with your own custom thing. I've got like 2 really good voiceover people, one of which is on the radio, like on a big station that I can use, and basically come up with a nice package that sounds super professional. And like, really, as when you look at like how much time it'll take to do, it's like piddly. Like, as far as what, I haven't really figured out the pricing yet, but like, it's, other than the voiceover talent, like the music I got already, and it's only really going to take me an hour to put the whole thing together.
yeah.
So yeah, there's stuff like that, and I mean, and that's like, I was actually watching some YouTube videos about like how to make money in the studio, and usually the jingle thing comes up, or somebody will suggest, oh, record a podcast for somebody, which is fine. I just don't know if, like, I'd thought about podcasting before, but like, are you gonna pay money to come into a studio and record it when you can just do it at home like we're doing? If you've got, so that I don't know about. But yeah, no, it doesn't bother me in the least. Did you have fun with it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't mind doing that sort of thing, because it's like, if it were for Soapy's Car Wash, I think I might be a little bit more hesitant to take that kind of job. But this is the amount of artistic license that was there for me was completely, whatever I wanted to do would have been fine. It's he likes the things that I've done previously, so he knew whatever he was going to get was going to be fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he was coming to the table all with already a plan. I think it would be kind of weird being a jingle writer and trying not to fall into the same shtick of doing the like same thing. It could be really easy to say, here's the name of the company, 4-part harmony. Here's the phone number. Please call again. The phone number, 4-part harmony. It like, I mean, I one of the other engineers that used to work for us, that's what he used to do all the time. That he made a ton of jingles, like tons. But this is back when like that was really the only promotion that a business could do was to promote on the radio. So, about 10, 12 years ago, jingles were like that was the thing, And then if you could write and you had vocal talent that you could, get really quickly to do it, and like I was saying, it doesn't take a lot of time to put something like this together, as far as the price is concerned. Now you can kind of it's when you're selling something that's custom like that, you can add a couple a zero to it, right?
Yeah, you could, but it's a buddy of mine, so it was
No, yeah,
cheap.
yeah, just as a um, as a I guess a way of making money for the studio. A lot of guys, nowadays do the like hip hop beat making thing, um, but there's so many guys doing that now. It's like yeah, it would be really difficult to make an honest living selling music to people.
Yeah, and there's that whole aspect of it where I don't know if you're doing something like that. There's so much of it out there, and for I mean, how many hours does it take to do each one of those loops? It's quite a bit of work. I mean, people don't realize how much work can go into a simple little loop like that. For a half hour of work, you get two guys who know a little bit about something, show up and talk about it, and put it out there, and it's actually useful to a bunch of people. I think that's a little bit better use of our time sometimes.
No, yeah, I totally agree. Actually, every time somebody comes into the studio and wants to do hip hop and they'll ask me if I've got beats, I'm like, you know what? I gotta charge per hour. Like this can be a $300 beat by the time I get it done. There's tons of guys doing this who are bigger hip hop heads than me. Go find them. Come on in. We'll record them. I'll put it together. Because it really doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for me, and I'm not like I can make a hip hop beat, but I'm not like it's not going to be outstanding compared to somebody who this is what he does. He's in his lab at night, and that's all he ever does. And if whether he makes money off of it or not is besides the point because he's just doing it because he enjoys it, right? That's sort of the dividing line, you know.
So yeah, I think I was pretty much okay with it. It was good. It was fun. Spent a few hours, knocked out a couple of them for him, and threw him over his drafts. And I made sure to master the drafts, just in case he liked them a lot. And he did like one of them enough where he
There
just
you go.
wanted to use it right out, and that saved me some time having to go back to it. So, commercials on the radio used to be the thing back in the day, but these days people are branding online, and if they've got any sort of media that they're putting out, be it a video or a podcast or anything like that, they need this kind of thing. So, I don't know. It's something to think about out there, guys. I mean, if you have the ability to make this kind of stuff, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like even people doing independent movies. There's so much. Even just like yeah, people just doing YouTube like sort of videos or web blogs or whatever. Um, it's much smarter to go out and get some custom music than to run the risk of having your stuff pulled off YouTube because you're using somebody else's tune that's copyrighted. Not that that happens that often, but
Oh,
I
it
mean,
happens
it
all
does
the
happen.
time. It
Yeah.
happens
So
constantly, even to me. And I'm using all my own 100% original content, they'll still pull it down.
they'll still pull it down. Yeah.
Yep.
So if there's ever a question, so it's good to get. Well, there you go. But it's still good to get your own stuff because then it's yours in its entirety.
Yeah,
Other
you
than
can stand up next to it and say, "Yo, YouTube, put it back, or I'm
yeah,
gonna complain." And then they'll be like, "Who are you gonna complain to? We're an automated system. You
yeah.
cannot resist the Borg."
I'm gonna complain and I'm gonna go to Vimeo
Yeah,
and then
not
I'll
so
come
much.
back to YouTube. That's kind of the bugger of it, eh?
Yeah, there's
Damn
there's no
YouTube, damn it.
alternative. You just kind of have to play by their rules, really.
Like there's like one guy standing out front of YouTube's office with a sign. Put my crap back online. Yeah, there's not much you can do. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's still better to have something that you're. I mean, if it's like you're writing a book, if you're gonna steal bits and pieces from other people's books, then you need to like cite them as references. But if you just come up with it yourself, then you don't need to worry about that, right? So
Totally. And that's why we
Yeah.
do all our own graphics, all our own music for our shows. It's just easier. You can find services out there where you can find stuff that's like Creative Commons license or whatever to use in your intros or outros or just as background music, whatever. And that's fine. But, it's really, there's a whole bunch of people out there who would be happy to make you custom stuff if that's what you're looking for.
I was gonna say, even there's so many bands out there that I'm sure would be happy to have some of their music as a background for, like, for somebody's podcast or blog or something like that. I mean, there's so many great bands out there that are independent that aren't making any money that would love any kind of exposure. So, not to take the money out of the engineers doing it in their basement, but that's a good solution as well. If you can track them down and say, hey, this tune just would be perfect for me or whatever. It's just a matter of doing some research, really.
Yep, and we get that occasionally off of our SoundCloud. Well, people message us saying, "Hey, I want to use this and this, that, or the other thing," and it's like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
Well, that's why I always say, if I was in the music business as a musician, I would be the biggest whore there was. I mean, it's the only way to keep it going. And when if you want to just do it as a living, there's so many things you can do, to try and get your music out there or get it sold or published or, and whatever. The more it's out there, the better, really, when you're talking about trying to make money as a musician, anyway. Cool. Well, that was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I thought you might like that one. Yeah, it's a little bit off the beaten path. It probably was a more often discussed topic back in the late '90s or whatever in our circles. But lately, there hasn't been a whole lot of point in buying radio airtime for commercials because basically nobody listens to crap anymore. But now that the whole internet thing and YouTube and all that is established, there's a new place where people are interested in getting their brands out there, getting their products out there, their services, whatever. And yeah, I mean we're in a good position as the folks who can make media happen
Content creators.
to make it better. This DIY content creation platforms that are out there are very empowering and a really cool thing. But pretty much everybody out there is they don't really know what they're doing. And that's where we should step in and sort of like provide this service to say, hey, I like your thing. I can help you make it a lot better.
Exactly. Yeah. Here's a couple of little pointers, and you might want to get some tunes, and then it's going to happen. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I think there's a certain level, um, when you're talking about doing a show or music, that if you can get to a certain level, even if it's still a little grungy, um, it just feels more like a produced show, more like amazingly enough, we're not scripted at all, but if stuff can be slightly scripted, it does help sometimes. Or at least polished anyway.
Yeah, and in this example, he knows that every single thing is going to have the same intro. So, he wants to have that be something that as soon as you hear it, your brain goes right to his brand, and
that's your hook. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
That's something that's been in advertising for a very, very long time, and it's not going anywhere.
Well, yeah, and the one that pops to my mind right now is Jenna Marbles. When you watch her videos, you always hear the squeak a dog toy at the start of every video, and it just automatically, for me, it automatically is like, all right, Jenna Marbles time, like right away.
Drops your brain right into that zone.
Yep, exactly. So I mean, and that is marketing 101. Say your name again, and say your name a third time. And then hopefully they'll remember. It's interesting how much, as an engineer or just being in the music business, how much more you learn about all these other sort of little things. I was looking at my resume, a few weeks ago, and there's so many of these little things. I'm not really I'm a master of one thing, but I'm a jack of a lot of other little trades, as far as marketing is concerned, and web design and graphic design, and this stuff that just sort of comes up, and you kind of I never took any classes really for anything other than engineering, and just sort of learned by my seat of my pants, really, which is how I think everybody's learning nowadays.
Yeah, the way that we decide what we're going to pick up, especially once you're out of school, has very much changed in the last couple decades here. The internet has changed a lot of that. I know if you're into music production, chances are you're also doing graphics design and maybe some video production, all that, because it's typically just it's not enough to just do one. You kind of need to have the whole package there.
Yeah, they all kind of go hand in hand, and I've always kind of wanted to, not that I've ever really done a lot of video stuff, but I've always kind of wanted to shoot something, like a short or um, some kind of zombie type movie or something, but like do the music for it, do the sound for it, do the, write it, get somebody to give me a hand shooting it. It's just a matter of sitting down and really writing something in the first place. But I always like look at, some of the friends that I have, and I'm like, that guy knows how to work a camera. This guy can do this. I know a bunch of actors. Like I've got it all there. It's just a matter of coming up with the nugget. Like if you look at your circle of friends, you know what I mean? There's enough people there that you can probably build something pretty interesting. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
my circle of friends could build a moon base if they felt like it. I swear.
Yeah.
Crazy smart.
Well, I have like a good friend of mine, went to school for film studies. I know lots of musicians. Um, I know a few graphic designers. I know at least two or three guys who also do film stuff. I know lots of sound nerds. Like, it's easy to put it together. It's just a matter of actually doing it. But yeah, it's interesting how that works.
And for anyone that thinks I was exaggerating, one of my buddies, even a local buddy here, is Earl Kyle. He was one of the engineers on the Apollo manned space capsules.
Ah,
So, yeah, I'm not exaggerating.
I'm not exaggerating. I do know somebody who's worked on something that's gone to the moon.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's another thing too. I know tons of guys that can fix guitar amps, fix guitars, and you know that kind of stuff too. It's just interesting once you fall into that circle where whatever it is that you started with, whether it was video or audio or doing CD design or something like that, you just tend to sort of gather these people that you know. My list of session guys is ridiculous. Like if I need to find it, I have 15 drummers I can get a hold of, a bunch of different bass players. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
And you
Well,
collect.
I know this guy who's he's trying to get a zombie movie funded through Kickstarter, and if they do ever get their funding taken care of, I will definitely pass your name across as a good audio engineer person.
I would love to sit and do sound design for something, like just sort of create it from scratch, the whole. That would be interesting. I've done a little bit of it, but I've often thought, and not really had the time, but to try and find a YouTube video of something that I could download and just sort of start working from, just to work on my skills. But it's a lot of work to sit and work on something that you're not really going to do anything with, especially if it's somebody else's. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
just as a like sort of lesson in learning, download a short of somebody's, erase all the audio, and create your own. You know.
Yeah, the guys over at FilmRiot have done that a few times where they've put up stuff. That's a video show on can't even remember the name of the network at the moment. But yeah, it's FilmRiot. You can Google it, look it up, guys. Of course, Shane will put it in the show notes too. So they've done that a few times where they've shot some some film, whatever, and then they'll put it out on the internet and they'll have everybody do a soundtrack for it.
That's
And
great.
just listening to the changes of mood and tone and meaning that can happen from different scores and different ways of approaching it, it's absolutely night and day and fascinating.
Yeah, everybody has a different plan or feel, or yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean, and I think guess that's where um I guess where if you hit it and you do it the right way for the right guy and it takes off, you can do it for a while. But I mean, for me, I like to just do it as a hobby, really. I guess the problem is when if you're doing something like that by yourself, when do you stop? Because if I was doing something like that, it would be overboard probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
and
after,
that's
yeah,
basically why my buddy was asking me if I could do his, his intro music for him. Not because he couldn't do it, but because, when you're working on something that you're absolutely in love with, it's kind of hard to
yeah.
know
Ooh,
when to
another piece
stop.
out there. Ooh, another. Yeah, I know. That's why I only have two guitars. If I have any more than that, it'd be a ridiculous amount of tracks per song. Oh, more guitar tracks? Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got that problem. They're all looking at me. They're on their stands. They're
Yeah,
looking at. They're like, Whisker, why didn't you play me today?
yeah, it's while my guitar gently weeps. I have the same problem actually. I'm sitting in my office, which smells like coffee, but yeah, I have one staring at me too, and another one I handily put in the closet so I didn't have to look at it. But that one needs some work anyway. So.
So, you were talking there, and I thought up a question actually. So you do a lot of mixing. Are you set up to do any surround mixing?
No, no, I'm not. Mostly because when it first came out, it was really expensive to get into it. Um, and like to get the right multi-channel amplifiers and then to also set the room up properly because when it first came out you need to have like a Dolby certified room to do it.
Yeah.
And you also needed specific Dolby encoding 5.1 audio software. Like there was programs out there where you could mix 5.1 and 7.1, but the actual encoding of the 5.1 file you needed specific software for, which kind of came with the Dolby specialization of the room. Um, so we never really did get into it just for that sake because it was really expensive. And to a certain degree, I'm kind of glad. I've been in a few rooms that are set up for 5.1, and I'm sure they're great to mix in 5.1, but they're horrible to try to mix in stereo because they're just not. It's just not the right. Doesn't feel right. It's not set up like a regular studio.
Yeah. I personally, I'm a really big fan of stereo at this point in my life. I really kind of just dig that a lot more than
Same
I
here.
do the surround sound. It was kind
I'll
of
give it an amen on that one.
yeah, it was kind of cool to mess around with it when it was fairly new, and oh, the explosion is behind me.
Hmm.
Yeah. But you lose all the soundstage and all that sort of thing that's possible with a really good stereo setup. And I don't know, I think keeping that the magic of stereo is a really good thing.
What I'm finding now too is that the Blu-rays that like I'm just listening on my um, TV speakers, but I've been planning on getting some sort of tower stereo speakers and then maybe a sub or something, just because the booms aren't boomy enough for me when I'm watching something. But they're using like a down mix feature to do this stereo nowadays. They spend more time on the 5.1 and they're just sort of doing like it's a down mix feature that sort of like compiles the 5.1 to sort of stereo. Um, but I'm just finding that the sound isn't as good on Blu-rays if you're watching the stereo. Like there's not as much detail spent worrying about it. Maybe I don't know, but
Yeah,
I
well, if
always
they're
find
using an
I'm
automated process of just down mixing it, then obviously, I mean, there's no human care taken on how it's put
no.
together.
I like this is from what I've gathered from some of the stuff, but what I've really found is the real problem for me is the dialogue just always seems to be a little too quiet.
Hmm.
Like, and so I'm turning it up to hear it, and then all of a sudden the explosions and the music happen. And it's like, holy crap! Like, it's just like I'm like, why don't I have a compressor? Just like I almost feel like, give me the damn controls so I can do this as myself here in my hand in my Dorito
Totally. Yeah.
because it drives me up the friggin' wall. But especially with the Blu-rays now, I'm finding it's really like I don't know. It just doesn't sound right to me.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I don't know. And the bugger of it is like I used to have sort of like the Walmart kind of 5.1 system in my living room, which it was really cheesy. Um, and in half the time I never even had it set up in 5.1. I just had all the speakers on like by the TV kind of, like there's the audio guy with nothing correctly. Well, because I have cats and they they'd fart around with the cable and
Yeah.
over, and it's unless you have a giant ass room, it doesn't really work. I'm totally stereo. If they did it right, I'm totally stereo. Or they gave me faders, one of the two.
Yeah. Well, we're out of time for this
Cool.
week, but after we turn off the record here, I'll give you a little tip that I picked up for helping with that problem that you just mentioned there. It's not really like a recording thing; it's more of a home theater thing. So yeah, we won't include it here, but thank you everyone for listening. We very much appreciate it. If you could pass it around to your friends that are into this kind of thing too, that would be great. You guys can find this show every Friday, patchbay.tv. There's an RSS link on the page if you want to automatically get it on your phone, your iTunes, whatever. Or you can just listen to it right there, push play. And that's it for us. We'll see you guys next week.